of all, John and Janet, I just want to thank you for coming to Life Solutions Counseling and Training Center and being willing to share your testimony with us today. Let me start out by asking you, what brought you into the Counseling Center for Biblical Counseling?
Well, we was in search of a way in following God's principles in marriage. We were struggling. We both had gone through previous marriages, sort of looking for somebody to try to please us or make us happy, and it just wasn't working. I mean, we are members of a church. We are strong believers, but still yet wasn't applying God's principle. And we wanted to seek a counseling in a godly manner instead of just a fleshly sort of counseling per se that leads you in every direction you can imagine. We, Janet had found this by
Radio in the car.
radio in the car, what, Joy FM, I guess?
No, I believe it was
91.5 or
Bots,
something?
91.5.
Okay.
That we heard it, she heard it, and she had asked me, would I be interested? By all means, yes. Whatever it's going to take to strengthen our relationship, I'm not going to fight that.
Good. Good. Okay, Janet, can you give me just or give us just a little bit, or as much as you feel like sharing, just about your testimony of where you were before, where God has brought you today?
Well, where I was before, as John had mentioned, previously married 2 times, looking for someone to make me happy, and married John, and soon realized he too wasn't going to make me happy, and it was just always a constant struggle. And by the grace of God, I heard the phone number on the radio. God gave me the wisdom to seek the counsel. We set an appointment, and the changes have been large. We've grown by leaps and bounds. I've grown to where now I really realize that it's pleasing God that makes me happy. Nothing else.
So is it about being happy?
No, it's not about being happy. It's about making God happy. It's about pleasing God. Therefore, your happiness comes. Because we're all looking for happiness. I mean, let's face it, we all want to be happy. But not all of us are willing to stop and realize what pleases God in order for us to be happy. Because God wants us to be happy more than we want us to be happy. But He only wants us to go through Him. And until we get to that point, we search mainly through people and other things before we get to that point. But after we've exhausted everybody around us and, realizing that different things don't make us happy, and we're really ready to look up at God, He's got it all there for us.
Good, good. So when we first started the counseling session, we went through a few sessions and things were kind of going a little bit, but it really wasn't working. Tell us why that wasn't working, John.
Well, I believe that we're both guilty of, and a lot of people that's in the same boat that we were in, that they look at the other person. They won't look at their flaws. They won't look at what they can do or what they're doing not to help the relationship. And during our counseling, we even use the example of until we come to the end of oneself, that you say, you know what, God, I got to come to the end of myself as a person. Take out all the selfishness, all the pride, get rid of it, and look at you for the happiness that I need. Only then is when I'm going to finally say, you know what, I'm not going to look at her. I'm going to just love her. I'm going to, I use it as we've got this here, me and God. I've got my relationship with God. Once my wife, Janet, became intact with her relationship with God, we then moved together as a triangle, and it became one. We just sat there and said, wait a minute. I can't keep looking at Janet. Okay, maybe she chews funny, maybe she sounds funny, maybe she talks loud, maybe whatever her faults are.
Annoying. My annoyance.
Annoying. Okay, I gotta look past that because I don't love her for that. I want to be pleasing to God. If I'm pleasing to God, the number one thing I'm going to do is be the head of my household, be the head of, take charge of the relationship, and be the spiritual leader. Do I like it? No. I didn't make the rules. That's the way God appointed it.
God called.
God anointed a man to be that, the leader of the household. And until I did that, none of this was ever going to happen. It was going to stay here, and we was never going to come together. And until I took it, because during our counseling, it came to the point where I even walked out of a session because I had enough. I said, this ain't going nowhere. Janet ain't looking at herself. I'm not looking at myself. We thought we was doing things right even during the counseling, but we still weren't. And until I walked out of that session, and even then I said, okay, I've had enough. God, I'm not willing to look at myself right now. I'm tired of looking at Janet. I'm done. I'm looking for an escape. And even during that time, am I proud to admit? No, but I got involved into an extramarital relationship in the course of this. And now, me of all people, there's no way I would dreamt that, because my second marriage that's what happened to me. So therefore, I would never do that to nobody. But because I was so tired of it, tired of the arguing, the fussing, the fighting, I know God's way, but I wasn't doing it. I could say it all I want, but I wasn't applying it. And until that point, until we come to that terrible threshold, and the light was revealed, the darkness came to light, that you know what? God allowed me to come to myself. I went through an injury, I blew out my Achilles, and I believe that was, God didn't do that, but God allowed it for me to sit there and say, wait a minute, look in the mirror, John. What do you really want? And when he did that, it was like, God, I'm at the end of myself. Here you go. It's me and you. I don't care what goes on with Janet right now. If she's building her relationship with you, that's up to her. But during that time, I looked at Janet, and I'm like, wow, this woman's changing. God is working through her. And then allowed me to say, you know what? Wow, this is the woman that I want. She's becoming that woman because your relationship was strong. Me and Janet met, and what's one thing we had intact, that we both wanted a strong relationship with God. So, all I can say is that until I came to the end of myself, and I got that relationship right with God, that's when it all became where it needed to be.